The emergency alarm screamed through the Galactic Council chambers. Red lights flashed on every wall as delegates rushed to their seats. Kang Do-yun, the human ambassador, walked calmly to his position while other species ran in panic. "Emergency transmission from the Outer Rim," announced the council speaker, a tall blue creature with 4 arms. "The Vellani Federation is requesting immediate military assistance." The hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber. A wounded Vellani appeared, his green skin pale and shaking. Blood dripped from cuts on his face. Behind him, fires burned and explosions shook the ground. "This is Lee Sun-woo, last surviving diplomat of the Vellani Federation," the figure spoke, with a breaking voice. "Our worlds are dying. The machines came from nowhere. They eat everything. Our cities, our people, our entire planets." The hologram showed burning cities and strange metal creatures moving through the streets. The machines looked like giant spiders made of black steel. They tore apart buildings and carried the pieces into massive ships hanging in the sky. "We call them devourers," Lee Sun-woo continued. "They have taken 40% of our territory in 6 months. Our military cannot stop them. They adapt to every weapon we use. Please, the Galactic Council must help us before they consume everything." The transmission ended. Silence filled the chamber for long moments. Then everyone started talking at once. "We must send the peacekeeping fleet," said the Altarian delegate. "Medical aid first," suggested another. "We can treat their wounded." "Diplomatic contact with these devourers," offered a third. "Perhaps they can be reasoned with." Kang Do-yun sat quietly, watching and listening. The other delegates argued about sending food, medicine, and small defensive forces. They talked about negotiations and peaceful solutions. None of them understood what they had just seen. The council speaker called for order. "We will vote on sending a combined peacekeeping mission. Medical ships, defensive escorts, and diplomatic vessels. All in favor?" Most hands rose. The motion passed easily. "Ambassador Kang," the speaker turned to the human. "Will Earth contribute to this peacekeeping effort?" Do-hyun stood slowly. His dark eyes swept across the chamber. "We will consider your request," he said in a calm voice. "Earth will provide an answer within 24 hours. The other delegates looked surprised. Usually humans agreed quickly to help with humanitarian missions, but Do-hyun's face showed no emotion as he walked out of the chamber. In space, Captain Park Min-ji commanded the human research vessel Harmony's Edge. The ship moved silently through the Outer Rim, officially studying star formations. In reality, Park Min-ji and her crew gathered intelligence on threats near human space. "Captain," called her communications officer, "we're picking up strange signals from the Vellani border." "Put it through," Park Min-ji ordered. The bridge speakers crackled with alien voices. The language was mechanical, like machines talking to each other. Her translation computer worked for several minutes before producing text on the main screen. Sector 7 Alpha consumed. Resources processed. Moving to Sector 8 Alpha. Resistance minimal. Organic defenses inadequate. Park Min-ji felt cold fear run down her spine. "How many sectors are they talking about?" she asked. Her science officer checked the star charts. "If they're using standard grid references, that's the entire Outer Rim, at least 200 star systems." "Captain," the communications officer spoke again, "there's more. They're discussing expansion plans." New text appeared on the screen. "Phase 1 completion estimated in 18 months. Phase 2 will target core systems. Galactic Council species show technological potential. Recommend accelerated consumption schedule. Park Minji stared at the words. The Galactic Council thought this was a local problem. They planned to send peacekeeping ships and medical aid. They had no idea that every living thing in the galaxy was on the Devourer's menu. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," she ordered. "Maximum encryption. Priority Alpha." Back on Earth, Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood in the command center deep, underground. Screens showed star maps, fleet positions, and intelligence reports. His staff worked quietly at their stations, monitoring threats across human space. "Admiral," his aide approached, "Ambassador Kang is on secure transmission from the Galactic Council." The main screen showed Kang Do-yun's face. Behind him, other species could be seen arguing and gesturing wildly. "Report," Choi Hyun-woo said simply. "The Vellani Federation is being destroyed by machines called Devourers," Kang explained. "The Council voted to send a peacekeeping mission. Medical ships, light, escorts, diplomatic vessels. They want us to contribute." "What do you think these Devourers really are?" "Unknown. But they're not raiders or pirates. This is systematic destruction. Complete consumption of everything they encounter." Before Choi Hyun-woo could respond, another transmission came through. Captain Park Minji's face appeared in a second window. "Admiral, we've intercepted Devourer communications. This isn't just about the Vellani Federation. They're planning to consume the entire galaxy. Every species, every world. The Council is walking into a trap." Choi Hyun-woo studied both faces on his screens. The Galaxy Council expected humans to send a few ships with medical supplies and defensive weapons. They thought this was another border dispute that could be solved with diplomacy. And peacekeeping, they were wrong. "Ambassador Kang," the Admiral said slowly, "tell the Council that Earth accepts their request for assistance. We will send military aid to help with the Devourer threat." "How many ships should I tell them to expect?" Kang asked. Choi Hyun-woo's face showed no emotion. "Don't give them numbers yet. Just tell them that humanity will provide adequate assistance." "Understood, Admiral." After ending the transmissions, Choi Hyun-woo turned to his staff. "Begin immediate fleet mobilization. All ships, all personnel. This is not a peacekeeping mission." "Sir?" his aide asked carefully. "What kind of mission is it?" The Admiral looked at the star charts showing Devourer expansion. "The kind we're good at," he said quietly. "Contact the Defense Ministry. Tell them to activate Protocol 7. His aide's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was total war mobilization. Every human military asset, every reserve unit, every experimental weapon. It had never been used before. "Sir," the aide said nervously, "the Council is expecting a small peacekeeping force." Admiral Choi Hyun-woo turned away from the star charts. His eyes were cold and hard. "The Council asked for our help," he said. "They're going to get it. All of it." Across human space, the message went out. Military bases came alive with activity. Ships launched from hidden stations. Weapons that had never been tested were loaded onto carriers. Scientists were pulled from research projects to work on battle applications. The galaxy had pleaded for aid. They thought they were getting peaceful helpers. They were about to learn what happened when humanity went to war. Kim Ji-won stood in the war room beneath Seoul, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human military asset in the galaxy. Ships, bases, weapons, personnel. Everything appeared as glowing dots and numbers in the air around her. As Supreme Military Commander of Earth Forces, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "Status report," she commanded. "Fleet mobilization at 60% and rising," reported her operations chief. All reserve units activated. Military academies are graduating classes early. Shipyards are working triple shifts. Intelligence update, called another officer. Captain Yoon Tae-ho has reached the combat zone. His ship Silent Thunder is conducting deep reconnaissance behind enemy lines. Kim Ji-won nodded. Yoon was one of their best stealth ship commanders. If anyone could get close to the Devourers without being detected, it was him. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Yoon Tae-ho's ship drifted silently through space like a dead rock. The Silent Thunder was designed to be invisible. No heat signature, no electronic emissions, no trace that anything alive was inside. Through his ship's sensors, Yoon watched a Devourer fleet strip apart a planet. The machines worked with terrible efficiency. Giant ships positioned themselves around the world while smaller vessels descended to the surface. Within hours, entire continents were being torn apart and fed into processing centers. "Captain," whispered his sensor operator, "I'm reading the planet's core temperature. It's rising fast." Yoon watched in horror as the Devourers didn't just take the surface. They dug deeper and deeper, consuming the planet's crust, then its mantle. Finally, they began extracting energy from the core itself. The entire world was being turned into raw materials and power. "How long?" Yoon asked quietly. "At this rate, complete planetary consumption in 18 hours. Yoon had seen wars before. He had watched cities burn and armies clash. But this was different. This wasn't conquest or territory grabbing. This was the complete elimination of everything that had ever existed on that world. "Record everything," he ordered. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know how they do it, what they're made of, and what they want next." His science officer worked frantically at her station. "Captain, their ships are almost entirely automated. I'm detecting very few biological signatures, and the ones I do see—" She paused, looking confused. "What is it?" "They're not controlling the ships, sir. They're being processed. The Devourers are consuming their own crew members for energy." Yoon felt sick. These machines didn't just eat planets and civilizations. They ate everything, including themselves, when necessary. Back on Earth, Dr. Bae Yoonji worked in her laboratory surrounded by captured Devourer technology. Her team had been studying fragments recovered from the outer rim for weeks. The technology was unlike anything they had ever seen. "The neural networks are fascinating," she explained to Kim Ji-won during their daily briefing. "Each machine is connected to every other machine. They share information instantly across vast distances, but..." "But what?" Kim Ji-won asked. "There's a weakness. The network has central processing nodes. If we could identify and destroy them, it might cause system-wide failures." "Might?" "We need more data. Live captures would be ideal, but..." Dr. Bae shrugged. "No one has ever taken a Devourer machine intact." Kim Ji-won smiled coldly. "That's about to change." In space near the Galactic Council headquarters, other species were assembling their contribution to the peacekeeping mission. Medical ships, supply vessels, and light cruisers gathered in small groups. The total force numbered maybe 30 ships. The Altarian commander contacted his fellow officers. "When do the humans arrive? Our intelligence shows they have significant military assets." "Soon," replied the Centaurian captain, "though I'm surprised they haven't sent advanced ships yet. Usually humans are very prompt." What they didn't know was that human ships were already moving. Not toward the gathering point, but directly toward Devourer space. 200 vessels slipped through hyperspace lanes that the Galactic Council didn't even know existed. Han Soo-young, director of Human, Intelligence monitored communications across the galaxy from her hidden facility. Her agents had been watching and listening for decades, building networks that reached into every major government. Director, her communications chief reported, the Council species are becoming concerned about our fleet size. The Altarians are asking how many ships we're sending. What are they expecting? Han asked. Based on their messages, maybe 5 to 10 ships maximum. Standard peacekeeping doctrine. Han laughed. They have no idea what they're dealing with, either the Devourers or us. Her screens showed intercepted messages between Council species. They talked about measured response and diplomatic solutions and proportional force. They were planning to negotiate with machines that ate planets. Director, another officer called out. We're intercepting Devourer communications. They're aware of the Council fleet assembling. Their response? They're accelerating their expansion schedule. 3 more systems will be attacked in the next 48 hours. Han nodded grimly. The Council peacekeepers will arrive just in time to watch more worlds die. Captain Yoon Tai-ho's reconnaissance mission was revealing more disturbing facts about the Devourers. His ship had followed their fleets to 7 different systems. Each one showed the same pattern. First, the Devourers sent scout ships to analyze the target. They studied defenses, population centers, and resource distribution. Then they sent overwhelming force, not to conquer, but to consume. Any resistance was dealt with efficiently. The machines didn't try to minimize casualties or preserve infrastructure. They simply removed obstacles and continued processing everything else. Captain, his tactical officer reported, I've identified 3 types of Devourer ships. Scouts for reconnaissance, processors for resource extraction, and enforcers for dealing with resistance. What about command ships? That's the strange part. There don't seem to be any. The entire fleet operates like a single organism. No hierarchy, no command structure we can identify, Yoon frowned. How did you fight an enemy with no leaders to target, no command centers to destroy? Every ship was equally important and unimportant. Send all data back to Earth, he ordered. Full transmission burst, maximum encryption. On Earth, the data from Yoon's mission reached Kim Ji-won within hours. She studied the tactical analysis with growing understanding. The Galactic Council was preparing to fight the wrong kind of war. They expected negotiations, limited engagement, and careful rules. The Devourers followed none of those concepts. They were a force of nature, like a hurricane or volcano. You didn't negotiate with them. You either stopped them completely, or they consumed everything. Initiate Protocol Omega, Kim Ji-won commanded. Her staff looked up in shock. Protocol Omega was theoretical. Total war doctrine with no limitations, no rules of engagement, no concern for collateral damage. It had been developed during the worst-case scenario planning sessions that assumed humanity faced complete extinction. Confirmed? Asked her chief of staff. Confirmed. The galaxy asked for our help. We're going to give it to them. Across human space, the message reached every military installation. Weapons that had been stored for decades were brought online. Experimental technologies were authorized for field testing. Rules of engagement were simplified to one sentence. Destroy all Devourer assets by any means necessary. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo received the authorization codes and felt both relief and dread. Relief because humanity would finally fight without holding back. Dread because the galaxy was about to see what humans were really capable of. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Kang Do-hyun received increasingly urgent messages from other species. Ambassador, the Altarian delegate approached him. Your fleet should have arrived by now. Our sensors show no human ships at the assembly point. Kang smiled politely. Human ships are en route. We take a different approach to these situations. What kind of approach? The effective kind. Before the Altarian could ask more questions, alerts began sounding throughout the chamber. Long-range sensors had detected massive hyperspace disturbances near the Devourer front lines. "What is that?" demanded the council speaker. The sensor operator's voice shook as he replied. 200 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not heading for the assembly point. They're heading directly into Devourer space. "Whose ships?" asked the speaker, though his expression suggested he already knew. Ambassador Kang Do-hyun stood slowly. "The Human Defense Fleet has arrived to provide assistance," he announced formally, "as requested by this council." The chamber erupted in chaos. 200 ships was larger than most species' entire military. This wasn't peacekeeping. This was invasion preparation. "Ambassador," the speaker demanded, "what are your intentions?" Kang's smile never wavered. "To help, of course. The Devourers are a threat to all life in the galaxy. Humanity intends to remove that threat, but the scale is appropriate to the problem," Kang interrupted. "You asked for our help. You don't get to dictate our methods." As if summoned by his words, Admiral Choi Hyun-woo's face appeared on the chamber's main screen. "Galactic Council," he said formally. "This is Admiral Choi Hyun-woo of the Human Defense Fleet. We have received your request for assistance against the Devourer threat. Human forces are now engaging the enemy." The first battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo watched from his flagship as human ships moved through space like hunting wolves. The Devourers had expected the usual galactic response: defensive formations, careful positioning, and attempts at communication. Instead, they faced something they had never encountered before. "All ships, execute hunting pattern Delta," Choi commanded. The human fleet split into groups of 3 ships each. Instead of forming a battle line, they scattered across the entire combat zone. Each group picked a target and attacked from multiple directions at once. The Devourers tried to adapt their standard response. Their ships moved to surround and consume the attackers. But human vessels didn't fight like other species. They used speed and aggression instead of careful tactics. "Contact!" called Captain Young Nayeon from her fighter squadron. "Engaging Devourer, processor ship." Young's pilots didn't try to disable the enemy vessel. They flew directly at it, launching everything they had before pulling away at the last possible second. 3 fighters didn't pull away at all. They crashed into the Devourer ship's core, creating massive explosions. "Young, report!" Admiral Choi demanded. "Target destroyed, Admiral. We're down 3 pilots, but they took out their main processing center. The whole ship is dead." Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out. Human ships attacked with a ferocity that shocked both enemies and allies. When conventional weapons weren't enough, they used their ships as weapons. Colonel Seo Jin-hyuk commanded the Marine boarding teams. His job was supposed to be impossible: capture Devourer technology while the battle raged around them. "Remember," he told his troops as they prepared to board an enemy vessel, "these machines eat everything. Don't give them the chance." The Marines didn't try to disable Devourer defenses. They blasted holes in the hull and poured inside, using heavy weapons to clear their path. When they encountered resistance, they didn't try to preserve equipment. They destroyed everything that moved and sorted through the wreckage later. "Colonel," one of his sergeants reported, "we've reached their central processing unit." SEO looked at the alien technology surrounding them. Cables and processors covered every surface, pulsing with strange energy. "Cut it out," he ordered. "All of it." "Sir, if we disconnect it wrong, we might lose valuable data." "Then we'll study the pieces," CO interrupted. "Cut everything, load it on the transport. We'll figure out how it works back on the ship." The Marine teams worked with brutal efficiency. Instead of carefully studying Devourer systems, they simply took everything that looked important. Entire sections of enemy ships were carved out and hauled away by human transports. Kwon Min-seok served as the fleet's AI warfare specialist. His job was to disrupt Devourer communications and turn their own systems against them. But first he had to understand how they worked. "Captain," he reported to his ship commander, "I've isolated a Devourer communication node, requesting permission to attempt interface." "Granted, but if it tries to take over our systems, it won't get the chance," Kwon replied confidently. Instead of the careful probing approach used by other species, Kwon launched a direct assault on the Devourer network. Human computer viruses flooded their systems while capture programs grabbed everything they could find. The Devourers tried to fight back, sending their own programs to invade human computers. But human systems were built differently. They expected attack and were designed to survive it. "Interesting," Kwon murmured as he watched the data flow. "They're not just machines. They're using biological neural patterns as processing units." The discovery was horrifying. The Devourers weren't just consuming civilizations. They were turning their victims into components of their own network. "Upload everything to the fleet database," Kwon ordered his team. "Command needs to see this." Oh Yejin ran the psychological warfare division. Her job was to demoralize the enemy and support human forces. With the Devourers being machines, she thought she would have nothing to do. She was wrong. "Captain," she reported to Admiral Choi, "the Devourers are broadcasting recordings of their previous victories. They're trying to intimidate us." "Show me." The main screen displayed images of worlds being consumed, populations fleeing in terror, and civilizations collapsing. The Devourers had recorded everything and now used it as a weapon against new enemies. "Can you block it?" Choi asked. Oh Yejin smiled coldly. "Better than that. I can send them something back." Her team began broadcasting their own recordings. Footage of human ships tearing apart Devourer vessels, Marines capturing their technology, and pilots sacrificing themselves to destroy targets. But they added something the Devourers hadn't expected. "We're sending them recordings of human wars," she explained. "Every battle we've ever fought, every enemy we've destroyed, every planet we've taken. Let them see what they're really facing." The effect was immediate. Devourer ships began moving erratically, their coordination breaking down. Their network couldn't process the concept of a species that fought not just to survive, but because they enjoyed it. In the Galactic Council observation, ships, delegates watched the battle in growing horror. This wasn't the careful peacekeeping mission they had planned. This was systematic destruction. "They're not trying to drive the Devourers away," whispered the Altarian commander. "They're trying to kill all of them." "Look at their attack patterns," added another observer. "They're not following any known tactical doctrine, they're just hunting." The human fleet moved through Devourer formations like sharks through a school of fish. They didn't try to capture territory or establish defensive positions. They simply found enemies and destroyed them with overwhelming force. When the battle ended, the results shocked everyone. The Devourer fleet was completely destroyed, not damaged, not scattered, obliterated. Human ships move through the wreckage, collecting technology and hunting for survivors to eliminate. Admiral, Captain Jung Nyon reported. Sweep complete. No Devourer vessels detected. We've recovered approximately 60% of their technology for analysis. Admiral Choi studied the tactical display. In 17 minutes, human forces had accomplished what other species thought would take months. But this was just the beginning. Set course for the next Devourer fleet, he ordered, and transmit our battle recordings to all Galactic Council ships. Sir, his communications officer asked. They wanted to see how we handle threats, Choi replied. Show them. The recordings reached Council ships within hours. Delegates gathered around screens to watch human vessels in action. What they saw terrified them more than the Devourers ever had. Human ships fought with a precision and brutality that seemed impossible. They coordinated perfectly while maintaining individual aggressiveness. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation to achieve objectives. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy it. This is not peacekeeping, the council speaker announced in an emergency session. This is total warfare. Ambassador Kang Do-hyun attended the session via hologram from his ship. Correct, he replied simply. The Devourers represent an existential threat. Total warfare is the appropriate response. But the scale of destruction is necessary, Kang interrupted. The Devourers consume everything. Partial solutions will fail. Either we destroy them completely, or they will eventually destroy all of us. What about diplomatic contact, negotiation? Kang's expression didn't change. You're welcome to try. We'll continue destroying them while you talk. The council fell silent. They were beginning to understand that they had asked for help from something they didn't comprehend. Humanity didn't fight wars. They fought extinctions. On the battlefield, human forces prepared for their next engagement. Marine teams sorted through captured Devourer technology, while fighters refueled and rearmed. The mood was surprisingly cheerful. Not bad for our first real fight against them, Colonel Co commented to his officers. Once we understand their technology better, this will get easier. Easier? Asked one of his lieutenants. Sure. Right now we're learning how they work. Once, we know that. We can build weapons specifically designed to kill them. Human weapons with human efficiency. The lieutenant looked nervous. Sir, what happens after we defeat the Devourers? SEO considered the question. I suppose that depends on what the galaxy does next. They asked for our help once, they might ask again. And if they don't want our help anymore? Colonel Co's smile was not reassuring. Then they'll have to learn to live with the consequences of getting what they asked for. In space around them, human ships moved in hunting formations toward the next Devourer fleet. The galaxy had pleaded for aid. Humanity had brought total war instead, and they were just getting started. 3 months after the first battle, the Devourer threat was over. Every single machine had been destroyed or captured. Their technology now filled human research facilities. Their former territory was under human military occupation. The galaxy should have celebrated. Instead, they watched in growing fear as humanity showed no signs of leaving. Governor Lim Dong-hyun stood on the observation deck of his new headquarters, looking down at the planet that had once been a Devourer processing center. Human engineers worked around the clock to rebuild it according to their own specifications. Status report, he requested from his aide. Terraforming is ahead of schedule, the aide replied. The atmosphere will be breathable for most species within 6 months. Population centers are being built to accommodate various alien requirements. And the locals? The surviving Villani are cooperating fully. They're grateful for liberation and eager to help with reconstruction. Lim nodded. The Villani had learned quickly that human efficiency extended beyond warfare. Entire worlds could be rebuilt in months instead of years. But human methods were different from galactic standards. Any complaints from the Galactic Council about our administration methods? His aide hesitated. Some concerns about the speed of changes. They're not used to such rapid development. Lim smiled. They asked us to fix the problem. We're fixing everything. The truth was that human administration worked nothing like galactic bureaucracy. Where other species formed committees and held lengthy debates, humans simply identified problems and solved them. Roads were built, power grids established, and cities planned without asking permission from anyone. Diplomatic attaché An Seo-yun spent her days managing what humans politely called allied concerns. In reality, she dealt with complaints from species who were discovering that human help came with human oversight. The Centaurians are requesting a formal meeting, her assistant reported. They want to discuss trade route management in the former devourer sectors. What kind of discussion? An asked. They want to know why human ships are inspecting all cargo moving through the area. An reviewed the files on her desk. Human patrol fleets had indeed been stopping and examining every ship that entered the reclaimed territory. They claimed it was for security purposes, making sure no devourer technology remained hidden. But the inspections were very thorough. Too thorough for comfort. Schedule the meeting, she decided. But make it clear that security protocols are non-negotiable. We won't risk devourer contamination spreading to other systems. The Centaurians wouldn't like that answer. Neither would the dozen other species who had filed similar complaints. But human security doctrine was simple: complete control or unacceptable risk. Commander Shin Woo-jin led the rapid response fleets that patrolled the galaxy's major trade routes. His ships moved in formations that looked casual but covered enormous areas of space. Officially, they were preventing any remaining devourer cells from regrouping. Unofficially, they were establishing human presence everywhere that mattered. Commander, his tactical officer reported. The Altarian trade convoy is requesting permission to alter their route through Sector 7. Reason: they want to avoid our patrol zones. They claim our ships make their crews nervous. Shin studied the star, charts on his display. The Altarians wanted to use routes that would avoid human monitoring entirely. That was unacceptable. Denied, he decided. Inform them that approved routes are the only safe routes. We can't guarantee their security if they deviate from established patterns. It wasn't technically a threat, but the Altarians would understand the implications. Ships that avoided human patrols might encounter difficulties, navigation errors, system failures, or unexplained delays. Go Haewon worked in intelligence monitoring, tracking communications across the galaxy. Her job was to watch for signs of devourer survivors or new threats. But lately, she was hearing more complaints about human behavior than praise for human protection. Director, she reported to Han Soo-young, we're intercepting increased chatter about forming a coalition to address the human situation. Which species? The Altarians are leading the discussions. They've contacted the Centaurians, the Zephyrians, and at least 6 minor species. They're calling it a coalition of concerned species. Han reviewed the intercepted messages on her screen. The coalition wasn't planning military action. They weren't that stupid. But they were discussing economic pressure and diplomatic isolation. What specific concerns are they raising? Han asked. They say human forces are too aggressive, too permanent, and too controlling. They want us to withdraw to pre-war positions and allow normal galactic governance to resume. Han laughed. Normal galactic governance is what let the Devourers get so far in the first place. Their committees and debates would have resulted in total extinction. Should we take action against the Coalition? Not yet, but keep monitoring. If they move beyond talking to actual interference with human operations, we'll need to respond. Dr. Bai Yunji had spent months studying captured Devourer technology. Her research teams worked in facilities that had once been enemy processing centers. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humans were now using Devourer methods to understand Devourer science. The neural network integration is fascinating, she explained to Governor Lim during his weekly briefing. We can adapt their communication systems for our own use. Instant coordination across galactic distances. Military applications? Enormous. A fleet using this technology would fight as a single organism. Perfect coordination, no communication delays, shared tactical awareness. Lim considered the implications. Human forces were already devastatingly effective. With Devourer technology enhancements, they would be unstoppable. Any risks? The original Devourer network was vulnerable to central node failures. We're designing our version with multiple redundant systems. If anything, it will be more stable than the original. How long until implementation? 6 months for initial testing. Full deployment within a year. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. They thought human forces were dangerous now. Soon, humanity would have technology that made their current capabilities look primitive. The Galactic Council chambers and emergency session was underway. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to discuss what they politely called the human situation. They're not leaving, complained the Altarian delegate. The Devourer threat is eliminated, but human forces continue to expand their presence. Our trade routes are under constant surveillance, added the Centaurian representative. Human ships demand detailed cargo manifests and passenger lists. They've established permanent bases in 17 systems, said another delegate. These are sovereign territories, not human colonies. The council speaker looked tired. What response do you propose? Economic sanctions, suggested the Altarian. Restrict trade with human territories until they comply with galactic law. Diplomatic isolation, added another. Formal protests, withdrawal of ambassadors, suspension of treaty obligations. Ambassador Kang Do-hyun listened to the complaints with polite attention. When the delegates finished their speeches, he stood to respond. The Galactic Council requested human assistance against an existential threat, he began calmly. We provided that assistance. The threat has been eliminated. But you haven't withdrawn. The Altarian started to protest. Withdrawn to where? Kang interrupted. The threat was eliminated because we committed sufficient resources to ensure complete victory. Those resources remain in place to prevent similar threats from emerging. What similar threats? Demanded the speaker. Kang's expression didn't change. Unknown threats. The galaxy demonstrated that its standard defense capabilities are inadequate against serious opposition. Human forces will remain in position to protect galactic security. We didn't ask for permanent occupation. You asked for help, Kang replied simply. You received help. The fact that our methods differ from your expectations doesn't invalidate the results. The chamber fell silent. The delegates were beginning to understand that humanity didn't think like other species. They didn't make distinctions between temporary assistance and permanent solutions. What are your intentions regarding galactic governance? The speaker asked carefully. We have no interest in governing other species, Kang replied. We're interested in ensuring that threats to galactic security are prevented or eliminated quickly. Our presence facilitates that goal. And if we formally request your withdrawal, Kang considered the question. You're welcome to make such a request. But consider carefully whether you want to responsibility for galactic defense to return to the methods that allowed the Devourers to nearly succeed. After the session ended, delegates gathered in small groups to discuss their options. The conversations were hushed and worried. They're not going to leave voluntarily, the Altarian whispered to his allies. Then what do we do? Asked the Centaurian. We can't fight them. We all saw what they did to the Devourers. Economic pressure might work, suggested another delegate. If we stop trading with them, they'll find other markets, the Altarian replied grimly. Or they'll decide that our economic resistance constitutes a threat to galactic stability. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. The galaxy had asked humanity for help, and humanity had responded with overwhelming force. 6 months later, Governor Ryu Seung-min stood in his office overlooking the galactic capital. Through the massive windows, he could see human patrol ships moving between the orbital platforms, like sharks circling their prey. Below on the planet surface, construction crews worked on expanding the spaceport to handle increased human traffic. Sir, his aide approached with the daily reports. The reformed Galactic Council is ready for your address. Ryu nodded. The old Galactic Council had been dissolved 3 months ago after what humans politely called administrative restructuring. The new version operated much more efficiently, mainly because it now served in an advisory capacity to human authority. Any resistance to today's agenda? He asked. The Centaurians submitted a formal objection to the new trade regulations. The Altarians requested a delay in implementing the security protocols. Otherwise, the usual complaints about the speed of changes. Ryu smiled. They'll adapt. They always do. The truth was that most species were adapting faster than expected. Human administration proved remarkably effective once people stopped expecting it to work like traditional galactic bureaucracy. Problems got solved, systems got improved, and life got better, as long as no one questioned the methods. Admiral Moon Jisoo commanded the human galactic patrol fleet from her flagship orbiting the capital world. Her ships maintained what they called peaceful security patrols throughout all major systems. In practice, this meant that human vessels monitored every significant activity in the galaxy. Admiral, her intelligence officer reported, the Outer Rim Confederacy is requesting a trade agreement. What kind of agreement? Full economic integration with human-controlled territories. They're offering exclusive access to their mining. Operations in exchange for protection and infrastructure development. Moon studied the proposal on her screen. The Outer Rim species had watched what happened to regions under human protection. Rapid development, improved security, and prosperity beyond anything they had achieved independently. They wanted the same benefits. Any conditions? She asked. They want to maintain nominal sovereignty over their internal affairs. Acceptable, as long as their internal affairs don't conflict with galactic security requirements. It was the same agreement offered to every species. They could govern themselves however they wanted, provided their decisions didn't interfere with human objectives. Most found this arrangement perfectly reasonable. Director Lee Jae-hyun managed human colonial development, overseeing the expansion of human settlements throughout former Devourer territory. His teams worked with the efficiency that had become humanity's trademark. Status on the Volani integration project? He asked during his morning briefing. Ahead of schedule, his deputy replied. The Volani government has formally requested full protectorate status. They want human administration for all major systems. Infrastructure development, 90% complete. Their industrial capacity is now 3 times pre-war levels. Agricultural output has increased by 400%. Population growth is accelerating. Lee nodded approvingly. The Villani had learned quickly that human methods produced results. Their people lived better, worked more efficiently, and worried less about external threats. In exchange, they accepted human oversight and followed human regulations. Any other species requesting similar arrangements? 17 formal applications for protectorate status. 23 requests for defense agreements. The waiting list is growing. The irony wasn't lost on Lee. Species that had initially complained about human presence were now competing to get more human attention. Success had its own appeal. Ambassador Park Sun-hee prepared for another session of the reformed Galactic Council. Her job had become much easier since the restructuring. Instead of debating every decision for months, the Council now received human recommendations and approved them with minimal discussion. Today's agenda? She asked her staff. Standard items? Trade route security? Resource allocation? Dispute resolution? The Zephyrians want to discuss territorial boundaries with their neighbors. Human involvement required? The disputed territory contains strategic mineral deposits. Command wants to ensure stable access. Park reviewed the files. The boundary dispute was typical. 2 species arguing over resources, while their populations suffered from the uncertainty. Traditional galactic diplomacy would have spent years reaching a compromise that satisfied no one. Human diplomacy worked differently. Schedule a mediation session, she decided. Present both sides with our recommendations for fair division based on economic efficiency and strategic value. Give them 72 hours to accept, or we'll implement the solution ourselves. It wasn't technically coercion, but species had learned that human recommendations were easier to accept voluntarily than to have imposed involuntarily. In the council chambers, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the weekly session. The atmosphere was different from the old days, more businesslike, less argumentative. Decisions got made quickly and implemented immediately. First item, Park announced. Security protocols for the inner rim trade routes. She displayed the proposed changes on the main screen. Human patrol schedules, inspection requirements, and cargo regulations appeared in neat columns of text. Any objections? She asked. The chamber remained silent. After 6 months, most delegates had learned that objecting to security measures was pointless. Human forces would implement them regardless of formal votes. Motion approved, Park continued. Implementation begins immediately. The session continued with similar efficiency. Resource allocation, infrastructure projects, and diplomatic protocols were discussed and approved in minutes rather than hours. The old system of endless debate had been replaced by rapid decision-making. Final item, Park announced. Request from the Outer Rim Confederacy for membership in the Galactic Protection Initiative. This drew more attention. The Protection Initiative was humanity's latest administrative creation, a formal alliance structure that provided security guarantees in exchange for economic and political integration. The Confederacy offers exclusive mining rights, favorable trade terms, and compliance with all human security requirements, Park explained. In return, they request full protection guarantees and infrastructure development assistance. What? Level of protection? Asked the Altarian delegate. Complete. Any threat to Confederacy territory will be treated as a threat to human interests. Our response will be proportional to the threat level. The delegates understood what that meant. Anyone attacking a Protection Initiative member would face the same treatment the Devourers had received. Any opposition? Park asked. No hands rose. Even species that privately resented human dominance recognized the benefits of the system. Life was safer, more prosperous, and more predictable under human protection. Motion approved. Welcome to the Galactic Protection Initiative. After the session ended, Park met with Governor Ryu to discuss long-term planning. Status of galactic integration? He asked. Proceeding smoothly. 43 species have joined the Protection Initiative. 27 more have submitted applications. Only 6 systems maintain complete independence. The independent systems? They're not causing problems. They trade with us, accept our security patrols, and follow our regulations. They just prefer to maintain the fiction of sovereignty. Ryu considered this. As long as they don't interfere with galactic stability, let them keep their illusions. What about the coalition of concerned species? Disbanded last month. Turns out it's hard to organize resistance when your people are prospering under the system you're trying to resist. The truth was that most galactic citizens had adapted quickly to human administration. Their governments might grumble about sovereignty and independence, but their populations enjoyed the benefits of human efficiency. Trade flowed more smoothly. Disputes were resolved faster. Pirates and raiders had been eliminated from most systems. Infrastructure projects that would have taken decades now finished in months. Any new threats on the horizon? Ryu asked. Nothing significant. A few minor. Species are making noise about forming a new resistance coalition, but they lack the resources to pose real opposition. And if they somehow manage to organize effective resistance, Park's expression remained neutral, then we'll respond appropriately. The galaxy asked for our help once. We won't let them make the same mistake twice. Governor Ryu walked to his office window, looking out at the busy spaceport below. Human ships arrived and departed on regular schedules carrying goods, personnel, and technology throughout the galaxy. The site was peaceful and orderly. His aide approached with the afternoon reports. Sir, the Zephyrian dispute has been resolved. Both sides accepted our boundary recommendations without modification. Any complaints? The usual grumbling about rapid implementation, but no formal protests. Their population seemed pleased with the mineral rights arrangements. Economic indicators? All positive. Galactic trade volume is up 30% from pre-war levels. Industrial production has increased by 50%. Even the independent systems are reporting significant growth. Ryu nodded. Human methods produced results that were hard to argue with. Species might miss their old independence, but they couldn't deny that life was better under human guidance. Sir, his aide continued, there's one more item.